here is Eric, and you can just see his lower limbs. And it's anatomically, if I can get it spit out, the foot is really interesting. Look at all these bones. Some of you wants to shout out how many there are to be quite exact. Yeah, I heard it. It was 26 bones in the foot. So it's quite a marvel. And we have the ankle, which is just a hinge joint. Though we do try to get a little bit more wiggle out of it than that. And then, of course, we end up at the knee. So we have the shin bones. We have the big dude, the tibia, and the fibula behind it. And that one, look how thin that is. That's all that's down there, and then it all travels up to the thigh bone, and that's a big, massive event. So we go from 26 bones to 2 bones to 1 bone. That's a lot of communication that has to take place. And if our feet lose this elasticity, it's like a trampoline. You're just bouncing around all day long. At least that was the engineering intention. But because of shoes and habits, maybe injuries, they sometimes become really locked in. And then the trampoline is no longer a trampoline. It is a block of cement that you're just slapping along. And those shock waves transfers up through your body and sometimes ends up right here and right here. So tonight we're going to look at how can we put the bounce back in our step and mitigate the shock. So you really are walking with ease. There's an old saying in yoga, and I don't know who to credit it to, but my teachers, several of them will often say, we die from our feet up. And it sounds really harsh. The first time I heard it, I thought gangrene. That doesn't sound really good, but I get it. But it's really more general than that. Our bodies are made for movement. And if we don't move, dis-ease begins to set in. A lot of our systems, digestive system, lymph system, our cardiovascular system, depends on things moving, muscles contracting and releasing. And once we become immobile, the systems begins to tank out. So that was a little scary, I know. With that said, we're going to start. So we start in Virasana tonight, hero's pose. And I've already placed a block right between my ankles for my tush. So in hero's pose, the heels are outside of the hips, not underneath as it is in thunderbolt pose. I left my book way over here. That's no good. And hero's pose is a really great pose for the knees and the ankles. So let's just get everything stretched out. Take your thumbs to the bottom of your feet and just iron everything back. Now, if you're sitting here thinking, Lord, I don't know we're going to be here very long, maybe take another blanket, maybe another block, add a little bit more support, come up higher. Ahimsa is the observance that governs all of the yoga practice. No pain in your practice. Because pain is just that, pain, and it's especially your body trying to tell you that you're about to create some injury. Now letting your shins right down the center of your tibia, the big bone, be centered. And as you look down at your thighs are parallel but not consolidated. And then your feet are straight back, not sickling together like fins or seal flappers, if that's a word. So straight back, 10 toenails down on the mat. Virasana has the benefit, it's a little easier to get the pelvis into neutral position. So rocking back and forth. In the front of the sits bones to the back of the sits bones. And notice how your spine has to negotiate the movement of your pelvis. Come to sit right at the tip of the sits bone, neither forward nor back. And now my shoulders are over my hips, and my head sits relatively easy right on top of the spine. Where often in cross-legged, we end up in the slump. So I invite you to take a moment and assess your Virasana, hero's pose. Is it comfortable? Or is there a body part that says, yeah, not so much? So maybe bring a blanket under your shins. If your ankles may not be used to being stretched out to this degree, so we can elevate the whole shin bone with a blanket. Rolling up a blanket, a towel, or washcloth to facilitate that we are easing into this event. Once you deem that your body is comfortable, so comfortable as a matter of fact, you could sit here and meditate for the next hour, no sweat. Don't worry, we won't. But you want to be that comfortable so that you can let your quills, your feathers relax down. Draw your awareness to your breath. I'm going to turn around so I'm facing you. And let the breath too be easy and free. Let it deepen. But not so much that it feels strained. So maybe a 4 in and a 4 out, or a 5 in and a 5 out is a good count. That's a balancing breath. Not too much, not too little. The yamas and the niyamas. So Joanne, I might not have muted you. You snuck in after, and if I hit the wrong button. There, now you're muted. Thank you. So the yamas and the niyamas are considered the root of the philosophical part of the practice, the words that are so important for us to observe and pay attention to allow the yoga practice to really bear fruit, to grow full and strong. And the yamas, the please and thank yous, are the non-harming. Don't lie, don't steal. Don't be careless with your resources, but don't be graspy either. Don't be greedy. So there's a balance between giving and holding on. And not just in money, which is what many think of first, but also in your friendships, attention, time, anything that has energy conservation. We can look at, am I being really graspy, or am I just giving so much away that there is nothing left for me, leading me into a state of dukkha, which is suffering. Yoga is about balance, creating ease and balance throughout. And in many ways, it's a very selfish practice. Because when I feel good, I can share that with you. And then when you feel good, you share it with me. And the more that we share the yoga practice with, the more people that are feeling balanced and well, the better off we are. So again, very selfish practice, benefiting everybody. The niyamas, ni, self, personal observances. And the first one is always a little funny. Cleanliness. Take care of your space, your surroundings. But also in what you put in your body, in your thinking, your thoughts, the company you keep, or TV you watch. You can make this as big or as small as you want. The second one is contentment, the one I talked about for Thanksgiving, the practice of gratitude and sharing this holiday that we are now embarking on. And I think today was Giving Tuesday, and I really like that. And I wanted to say a thank you too to everybody, as your donations to me benefits a simple gesture here in Greensboro, feeding children that otherwise might have to go without. So thank you, thank you. The third one is tapas. Tapas, not the Spanish variety, but conscious effort for positive change. So if you have a habit that you're not really happy about, and we all have those little, consciousness is where it begins. We must be willing to make the change, and then we must do the work. When we come onto the mat, the practice, knowing what needs to be strengthened versus what needs to be released, that's tapas. Which then takes us to the study of ourselves. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? What on earth is my purpose? And last, surrender. Surrender any notion of ownership of outcome of your effort. Own the effort in all that you do, but the outcome belongs to everybody, to the divine, whatever the name is, God, Muhammad, to whomever you give it to, but not to you. And therein lies the conundrum. With that said, let's begin the practice. Interlace the fingers. We'll just do our little opening events. Stretch to the right. And let's come up and stretch to the left. So whenever there is suffering, the practice says, look to those 10 events. Where's the pebble in the shoe? It is one of those. Exhale, twist to the right. Inhaling up. And let's twist to the left. Inhaling back up. And we'll take the hands down, bring the legs out in front. Tend to our trampoline. So let's extend the legs out in front. Let's check the legs out, especially if you kind of was wondering if I was just going to keep yakking on for the next 45 minutes. Let's get some circulation into the legs. And then we'll take the right foot up, holding the foot and the knee, and just rock it from side to side. I want to get a little bit more movement into my hip joint. Place the leg, your ankle across your left leg, and then take your left hand and slide the fingers in between your toes, web to web. So holding hands and foot with yourself. Left hand, right foot. And we'll start with some ankle circles. And I know it is not a ball and socket joint, but we do have a lot of mobility here. Let's go in both directions. And then we'll traction the toes towards the top of the foot and then pull the toes down, back and forth. So as you go, bend the toes back and then drag them under. And of course, don't force anything that doesn't want to be forced. But can you bend your toes to a 90-degree angle in relationship to the top of the foot? That's called a toe off. And that is necessary for a healthy gait. Now let's wring the foot out. Wring it out from side to side. And yes, we do this the first week of every month. I hope you do it throughout the month, even when I am not doing it with you, because it is such a good practice to keep your feet healthy. Now squeeze the toes around the fingers, fingers around the toes. Squeeze as hard as you can. And that midline that I talked about, are your gums hardening? It all connects. Now relax the toes and traction the toes out. So my fingers are still holding onto the toes. I'm pulling the toes out as long as I can get them. And then spread the fingers and release. And then this little piggy, each toe gets a little tug in a roll. Start with the pinky toe. And then when you get up to the big toe, you're going to give it a little bit of extra attention tonight. First, pull it all the way down towards the bottom of the foot. So really bend that joint. Get a lot of arthritis in this joint. And then also pull the big toe away from the second toe. Get them spreading well. Women's shoe in particular looks nothing like women's feet sometimes. and then releasing that. Take the hands on each side of the foot, compress the foot. So you were at 8, now you're at 8 narrow, and then you roll from side to side to break up the fascia so that the muscles, tendons, and ligaments for these 26 bones have space to move. And now, go for a little walk. Thumbs is going up and down the bottom of your foot. Breaking up the fascia. And so remember, sesame oil, not toasted, sesame oil is wonderful for your feet, but don't do it right before you're about to practice because it's going to get slippity-slidey in the practice, but great to do before you go to bed at night. And then last, we're going to do the little heel tuck. So grab onto the heel and just wiggle it around. It's a very thick pad and the fascia gets really stuck here. All right, bring the legs out in front. Do a little wiggle test. It's a little bit more wiggly on the right. Now also, do a little forward bend and notice, do you just have a little bit more bendability on your right side? Just from releasing the feet. I think this is the craziest thing, but these fascia lines, you tend to one end and you're going to get a lot of benefit all the way up. So let's just go at it with the left foot. First, get all hippie here. Wiggle back and forth, and then rest the foot on top. I'm going to need to take my ring off for this one. Web to web, slide the feet in. So you could give a foot massage to somebody for Christmas. I bet they'd really like that. Nice little stocking stuffer, isn't it? One foot massage coming up. First, ankle circles. Clockwise. Unless you're like me who has super ticklish feet. And then it's not such a good idea. And funny enough, you cannot tickle yourself. I don't understand the logic behind that. So now that was a total peripheral notion there. Clockwise, counterclockwise, and then let's ponder the toe off on this side. Pull the toes up and then stretch them down. Go back and forth. Toes under, toes up. So getting that joint, metatarsal, all loosened up, and then wring it out from side to side. Did we do that on the other foot? I got talking. I'm just wringing from side to side. And then we're going to do the squeeze. Squeeze the toes around the fingers. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then relax the toes, but hold on with the fingers as you pull the toes out. Pull the toes long, spread the fingers, and release. And then this little piggy, start at the pinky toe. Each toe get a little tug and a roll. And again, give the big toe a little bit more attention. Both drawing it up by itself and then pull it down. Back and forth. Big toe stretch. And then also pull it away from the second toe. And now, the squeezer, the vise. Compress each side of the foot and roll. I just like saying that. And then we'll go for the walk. Thumbs up and down. The order is really not important here. This is just how I remember it. But we're just looking to bring full mobility to the foot, somewhere between a massage and mobility training. And then let's do the heel wiggle. Get the heel all moving. And we'll release. And have a look-see at your feet. Are they waving back at you? Are they happy? And let's test the forward fold if we got a little bit more on both sides. So sometimes it's not the hamstrings that's tight or the low back, it's the fascia band. And around the ankles and calves in particular, I see a lot of tension. With that said, let's come onto all fours. Tabletop. Cat and cow. Rounding as you exhale and arch on the in-breath. Just go back and forth. Don't make it too hard. And we come to neutral, belly button towards the spine, and just wag your tail. Wag the tail. And we're back at neutral. We'll take the right leg back, stretch it back. Toes are tucked under. And then press back through the heel. And we get a little bit of a calf event. So this is a repeat from last week. So we have two calf muscles, the gastroc, the twins back there. They cross over not just the heel, but the knee joint. So when the knee is straight, we get those big guns. But now bend your knee a little bit. Keep pulling the heel back, but bend your knee a wee bit, and you're actually going to get to the soleus, a deeper calf muscle, the victim of whatever's going on with the gastroc. That does not cross over the knee joint, hence the reason we're bending the knee. Let's take the knee down and switch to the other side. Again, start just with the big guns, the gastroc, which apparently means twins in French. I do not parler français, so I can't tell if that's true or not, but it does look like a chicken breast leg back there, if you ask me. And from there, let's bend the knee, keep pressing the heel back. So very different sensory event on the soleus. Now the soleus is sometimes called the second heart, because it helps move the blood back up from the feet and lower legs. Let's take the leg down, tuck the toes under, and then we're going to stretch back to puppy pose. Reach the hands forward, pull the hips back, pull the hips back. And then inhale, travel up through modified plank, so the knees are down. Flip the feet, tops of the feet comes down, and we are in our high cobra. And then exhale, flip the feet, pull back to puppy pose. Inhaling forward, flip, lift the heart. And exhale, pulling back. We're working with two different fascia lines now, the front and the back. And to adjust the feet accordingly facilitates all the way up through both lines. So as you draw forward into the high cobra with the tops of the feet down, the whole front line is open as you tuck the feet. It facilitates the back. Now, next time you come forward to our high cobra, press the tops of the feet down and maybe lift the knees, lifting the knees. We're now in upward facing dog, upward facing dog. And then take the knees down. We go back to puppy pose again. Inhale forward again, upward facing dog. Lift the knees and draw back. Puppy pose. Tuck the toes. Now in puppy pose, let's walk the hands back towards the knees and sit up on the heels, sitting up on the heels in a variation of thunderbolt pose. So this is not everybody's favorite. Don't put any more weight on your heels than is available for you. Good choice, Sally. And ahimsa, always rules the day. This is a way to work with the toe mount, with the toe off that I talked about before. Now let's come forward. Now stretch the toes back and sit on the heels, sitting right on the heels. So that your heel bone and your sits bones are like little magnets. Duk, duk. And so very easy for children, but for adults, not always the case. We don't spend a lot of time in this pose. That's where we do the note to self, svadhyaya. Oh, that pose was hard for me. Why was that hard for me? Let's come forward again. Now I invite you to take a blanket if you have, or towel if you have one nearby, for Malasana. You'll tuck the toes, lift the knees up. And then if your heels are not on the mat easily, a blanket can be really helpful, and it can help you sit more grounded back. And here, taking your forearms and shoulders to the inside of the knees. So in many different cultures, yes, Sally, happy baby, perfect. So obviously this is a great pose for the hips, but it may not be for the knees. So happy baby is an alternative. It's a great pose to strengthen the ankles, and it also helps release the low back. So what's there not to love? Our culture, Western culture, we don't sit like this a lot. We have chairs. But maybe we should sit like this more. But cultures that sit like this a lot, they have entirely different sets of problems. So variety is really what we need. Now let's take the hands down and walk the hands forward to plank pose. Walk the hands forward to plank pose. Full or modified. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Now in downward facing dog, and we know dog, we do it every time, can't do a class without dog. But today, lift your heels as high as you can. Lift your heels as high as you can, then bend your knees, but keep the hips moving back. If your mat is slippery, then grab onto the outer edges of your mat to gain some traction. Because a slippery mat, that is no fun. Now with your heels high, with the knees bent, first slowly straighten the legs to the degree that your hamstring will allow. And then without wrinkling up the front of your ankles, begin to descend the heels. But look at your ankles. You got a great view right here. Can you keep the ankles from wrinkling up? They're going to wrinkle a little bit, but not collapsing. So look at the skin. Let's lift the heels again. See, no wrinkles. And then slowly let the heels descend. Can you keep them wrinkle free? So now we're really working on the arches of the feet. All right, let's look up and exhale. We're gonna walk or step the feet towards the hands. Woo. Inhale, look up. Hands to the hips and all the way up. Boom. Tadasana. Mountain pose. So as you stand in mountain pose, we have 4 corners under the foot. We have the big toe mount, the little toe mount, the inner and the outer heel. And these are the corners that we want well anchored in our standing poses. So lifting and spreading your toes. Just lift and spread all of the toes. Are they all coming up like little baby turtles? Now stretch the big toes forward. Stretch the big toes forward and just have the big toe mount down ever so lightly, but really keep stretching the big toes forward and then towards the midline, So that takes a little bit of effort in your legs and in the feet. I know, let's lift the big toe back up. Stretch the pinky toe forward as you press the pinky toe down. And then move the pinky toe away from the center line. Really fan out the front of your foot. Pinky toe is down, the other 4 on each foot is up-ish, at least in theory. We're gonna lift everything up again. Let the toes come down and lift up on the toe mounts. Lift the heels up, lift the heels up. So fallen arches, again, it becomes a real problem because we lose that trampoline. So the moment, now the heels are down, Lift and spread the toes. Notice how the arches are lifting. Hold the arches up as you stretch again the big toe forward. So there's going to be an action you're going to hear a lot tonight. And as you stretch forward through the big toe, now go to the inner heel and ground the inner heel. And then like you're tightening the lid on the jaw, just swoop around to the outer heel. Get that clipped in, and then forward to the pinky toe mount. How hard are your legs working right now, keeping these four corners? I know, they are turned on. So when I say that we dive from our feet up, what muscles are we not using regularly? At ease, soldiers. I know. Standing facing the long side of your mat. And actually, let's put our blocks down on the back edges of the mat. So our standing poses, the foundational standing poses, are all about teaching us the relationship between our feet, lower legs, knees, thighs, and hips. Let's take the fingertips together at heart center. Now, as you stand, are the four corners touching? Big toe mount, inner heel, outer heel, and pinky toe mount. On an inhalation, let's step the feet wide apart. Feet wide apart. Take the hands to the hips. We're going to turn the right foot in 10 to 15 degrees and left leg out 90 degrees. Preparing for warrior two. And let's get the knee joint a little head start. So just exhale, bend the knee. Inhale, straighten. And look down at your knee. Does it track right out over to the second toe? No wiggling in and outwardness? Sneaky knees, very sneaky knees. Now, next time you sit into the pose, keep the knee bent, keeping the knee bent. Let's go to the back first. The back foot first, your right leg. Lift and spread the toes. They're not going to lift very far, I know. Big toe mount, check. Inner heel, check. Outer heel, got it. Pinky toe. So that foot sits down, really connected. Keep energy flowing to your back leg. Don't get light-footed back there. That's your anchor in the pose. Now let's get to the front foot. Lift the heel a little bit. Lift the heel a wee bit on your left foot. Can you sit down a little bit deeper into the pose with the heel lift? Sometimes we can. And then here, bring the heel down. And let's come to the four corners here again. Big toe mount, stretch the big toe forward. Inner heel, outer heel, and pinky toe. Let's take the arms out to the side. Turn the palms up. Turn the palms up. Reaching, 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 reaching. Stay in your feet. Stay in your feet. And then reach and elongate as far over your left leg as you can. Take your hand to the block. If you don't have a block, take your forearm to your inner knee or thigh. Either is perfectly fine. Let's sweep the right arm overhead. Stay on the back leg. Stay on the back leg. So your spine is completely straight here. So if you come down too low and you're rounding the spine, you have two options. Either bend your knee more, or come up higher, come up higher. Now the four corners of each foot still on the job, but so is a lot of other stuff, I know. One more breath. On the in-breath, up you come. Hey. Or we should do the other side. Let's turn the left foot in 10 to 15 degrees. Right leg turns out 90 degrees. Let's go to the left foot again. So you have 3 arches under your foot. The main arch, we all know that, between the big toe mountain and the inner heel. So as you lift and spread the toes, activate the main arch. Now draw back to the inner heel, swoop it around to the outer heel. And now we have an arch on the outer edge of the foot too, the lateral arch. Is there any lift out there? And then as you go to the pinky toe mount, ground down there, but stretch the pinky toe forward, you have a transverse arch between the big toe mount and the pinky toe on the front. And that's a trampoline. So hold that while we begin to work on the front leg, getting that hip all juicy up. But don't lose the back leg. Don't lose the back leg. Bend and straighten your right knee. And here we are. Let's take the arms up again. Palms facing up. Lift the heel, lift the heel. Can you sit down a little bit deeper, but stay centered on the pose. Center on the pose. Don't you feel like trapeze artist at the circus right now? Balancing. Let's let the heel come down. We get a little bit more grounded. And then extend and reach way out over. Right leg, sorry. Find the block and reach the right arm. Left arm, sorry, I'm backwards, I'm hitting you. Over the head. So as you reach the arm overhead, keep extending back, 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 back to your left outer heel. So right now, the left side of your body is in a handstand. Tall mountain, extending, creating space. Inhale all the way up. Let's take the hands to the hips. How are your feet doing? Hanging in there? I'm going to turn sideways so you can better see the next pose. Prasarita Baddhodvanasana. If you know that you like blocks for this forward fold, I invite you to move them in the direction. So if hamstrings are a little snug tonight, just place your blocks in front of you on the mat and you are ready. But we're going to start by bending our knees. Bend the knees. So you're sitting down in this very fat horse saddle. Lift the heart, pull the heart up. And then hinge from the hip joint to let the spine come forward. Let the hands come either to the blocks or the mat, whatever is comfortable, but maintain the back bend. Do not let your spine round so you continue to move the sternum away from the belly button. You're looking up, you're looking forward. And now, slowly straighten the knees to the degree that you can maintain length in the spine. Keep the hips over the heels. Hips are right over the heels. How do you know if your spine is rounding up? Your gaze is pulling back towards your feet. Keep the gaze forward. Keep your back bend. Keep your back bend. Your spine depends on it as you walk your hands forward, either on the mat or maybe on the blocks. Walk the hands forward, but pull the hips back. Pull the hips back. Traction your spine, one of the most important things we can do in the practice. All right, here we are. So far, so good. But the feet, you say, the feet. So lift and spread the toes. Stretch the big toes forward again. Go back to the inner heel. Tighten the jaw to the outer heel. And then stretch forward through the pinky toe mount, activating all the arches under your foot. Not too much, not too little. And then breathe. Breathe, 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 breathe. One more breath. And we walk the hands back under the shoulders. And then heel toe in. So that we can take the hands to the hips a little easier. And then inhale, press all the way out. Step the feet all the way together. Notice your feet on your mat. How do you stand? How do you walk? So I invite you to really pay attention after class today on, are you, as you walk, leading as you gait straight forward? Does your knee track over the second toe? And do you bend the foot, or do you do interesting things in the hip joint? If your feet are not doing the majority of the work, what has to accommodate, what has to change? From that, let's take our blocks to the top of the mat. Now let's tend to the hamstrings. Let's stand between the blocks, standing in mountain pose. Bear the weight down through the heels. Weight down through the heels. But then connect to the big toe mount and do the little inner heel, outer heel, and pinky toe. So that your legs feel really solid and well grounded. Inhale, let's take the arms out and up, reaching up, tall mountain. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half forward fold, and we're going to step the right foot back. About 3 feet, so don't make it ginormous. With the heel up, it's a little easier to steer the hip. So imagine that your hips are now held in a vice. They can't go back or forward. Slowly spin your left heel towards the floor. Now, it may not come all the way down. I know, that's okay. That just gives you a little bit more arch. Let's lift it up again. Did your hip move with your heel? So, sorry, what I should say is, did your pelvis move with your heel as you spin the heel towards the floor again? Keep your pelvis absolutely neutral, so that there is no change in the spine or the shoulders. From here, now on your left foot, lift the front of the foot. I'm going to move my block out of the way, you can see what I'm doing. So you roll onto the back of the heel. That helps get the left hip a little bit further back. Now we're really talking to the hamstring on that leg. And we're going to stretch the toe mounts forward, hold them down, but keep the hip back, keep the left hip back. So we got as much length that we could possibly muster in this pose. Your right outer heel keeps rooting back towards to get to the floor. It may or may not. And your front leg, hip pulls back, hip pulls back. Keep lifting the hips, keep lifting the hips. I'm not interested in the forward fold part of this pose tonight. I want to know how your feet and legs are doing. So if your spine is rounding here, if you feel your spine is rounding, bend your right knee, bend your right knee. Or take your hands up higher. So you always have choices. Remember, spine is king. Now let's play a little bit with this pose. As you lift up on the heel, let's everybody bend the left leg, and we're going to move the block forward and come into a variation of Warrior 3. Lift the back leg straight up, parallel to the ground. Now both legs are working. Reach back through the four corners of your right leg as if you're telescoping it further back, and you lengthen the leg. And then on the left leg, get the four corners well anchored. Get the four corners well anchored. Lengthen, lifting, lengthen, lifting, and release the right leg down. We're in standing tabletop. Woo. Move the blocks back beside the feet and step the left leg back. Step the left leg back. Keep the heel up for starters. When the heel is up, it's really easy to get the big toe mount and the pinky toe mount down. Easier at the very least. But now let's spin the heel down. We're going to have a little trial run. As you spin the heel down, does the pelvis move back with the heel? So that was a study, Svadhyaya, one of the niyamas. Pay attention. Let's do it again. Keep your left pelvis rim forward as you spin the heel back. Spin the heel back. If the pelvis moves, the spine moves. So try not to give yourself scoliosis in this pose. Now let's adjust the front foot, the right foot. Roll onto the back of the heel. And steer this hip back. Steer the hip back. And then stretch the toe forward. Stretch the toes forward. And it's okay to let your knee bend here. It's okay. Better take care of your spine. And then we'll go to the extremities second. Start at the beginning. So now, four corners of each foot. I'm going to let you just go in. Start at the big toe mount. Big toes drifting towards center. Run back to the inner heel. Sweep it around. And up to the pinky toe. Stretch the pinky toe forward and out to the side. I think we're ready for warrior three. Legs on the other side. So coming forward again. Lift off the back foot. Move the blocks forward. And lift the left leg. Standing leg. Four corners. Check. Lifted leg. Four corners. Check. And extend back as far as you can from these four corners. Like you are some spider woman, man, shooting spider web back. Breathing, lengthening, and release. Left leg back next to the right. Forward, half forward fold as look up. Exhale, forward fold. And we're going to step back to downward facing dog. One more time. One more time. Let's take the knees down. Wide kneed child's pose. Release the tops of the feet onto the mat. Big toes touching. And then use your hands to push your hips back as close to the heels as you can get them. And then let the forehead come down on the mat, maybe your forearms, maybe a block. Pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. And then use your arms and hands to sit up. Let's bring the legs out in front. And I invite you to sit up on a blanket. And we'll do Ardha Ardha Vatsyasana. Let's take the legs out in front. As we sit in Dandasana first, seated staff pose. So with the hands behind, lift the heart. And then reach out through the toes. Now, if the hamstrings are a little snug, bend up the knees perfectly fine so that you can still sit straight up on your sits bones. Spread out through the four corners of your feet. And then here, bend up your right leg, bending up your right leg. If your knee is bent, take a block or a blanket and put it under the knee so you can begin to ground into that. We're going to take the right leg across. Take the right leg across. So wiggle, 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 wiggle the left a little bit further so that they are. I will face you here. Right leg is across. So my knees are stacked. So in the full Ardha Matsyendrasana, I will bend this one to the side, but tonight I'm really more interested in what's going on in my bent knee foot. We got 4 corners. Let's take the hand to the outside of your right knee, left hand to the outside of the right knee, right hand goes back. Now suction the 4 corners of your right foot onto the floor. Inhale, lifting up from here and twist to the right. Lift, 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 lift. And let's twist a little bit deeper. Do one more breath, lifting and twisting. Now without looking, what is your left foot doing? Telescope the 4 corners away from the hip, just reaching out. And then your right foot keeps telescoping into the earth, so your legs are working very active in this pose. That supports your spine. Let's turn the head, look over the left shoulder, looking over the left shoulder. Breathing. And then slowly turn the head back. And release the twist. Come back to center, wiggle, wiggle the legs back. We're back in Dandasana, seated staff pose. And now let's take the left leg, take it to the outside of the right thigh or knee. 4 corners off your left foot, touches down. Right hand to the outside, left hand goes back. So the benefit of using the hand rather than the arm is I can sit much straighter when I take my hand to the outer knee. Keep the spine lifted and long. Spine is king. Spine is king. We don't want to squeeze any of those little nerve pathways because that's uncomfortable. Inhale, we lift, 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 lift. Create space between the vertebrae, and then exhale, let's begin to twist to the left. Lift up again. And exhale, deepen the twist. Keep the spine long. Just turn right around the axis. Now, without looking at your feet, does your feet on your foot, your left foot, ground down 4 corners? Check, check, check. And what about your right leg telescoping out through the 4 corners? Through the 4 corners. Turn the head, look over your right shoulder. Look over the right shoulder. The pose that Baxter Bill once called the glamour shot pose. Are you feeling glamorous right now? And we turn all the way back. And let everything unwind. Extend the legs out, take the hands back. Dandasana, again, seated staff pose. And then we will come onto our mat with a block or 2 at your side. So we're going to start in bridge pose. So come onto your back. You will lift the hips and take first 1 block. Just 1 low block under your hip. And this is not so uncomfortable. Take the hands down alongside and draw the shoulder blades together so that the back of the shoulders can really make contact to the floor. Now inhale, press the 4 corners into the floor and lift up. We know bridge, it's a great pose. And exhale, lowering down. And we can get a little bit more jiggy in bridge by lifting the heels. We know that because now we're using the entire front sutra thread. And then exhale, lowering back down. And so if you have two blocks, as you lift up again, you might want to enjoy having two blocks stacked, or take your one block and flip it over onto the next setting. Or if you would like to stay exactly where you are. The blocks are right under the sacrum. They are not in the lower back. You can stay here or follow me into Viparita Karni. Pull one knee in at a time, knees over the hips, and straighten the legs to the sky. You can absolutely do this pose without elevation under your hips. But we have the benefit of gravity with the blocks. Now lifting up through the feet. And let's do some ankle circles. We asked a lot of our feet tonight. Right now, everything just flows a little easier towards the heart, so the heart doesn't have to work so hard. And pump the ankles. And then here, as you've done that, now spread the toes. And do the same actions that we've done the whole time, but maybe only about 20%. So the big toe mount lengthens up. Inner heel lengthens, outer heel, and big toe mount. So you're creating the arches again. And breathe. Just breathe. Keep the chest lifted, the shoulders down. And then on the next out breath, let's bend the knees. Now pull the left knee a little closer to the chest as you take the right knee down so that you're not torquing the sacrum. And then bring the left down. Now inhale, press the feet down, squeeze the glutes. Don't lift up into bridge, you're just squeezing the glutes. We're gonna get all the little attachment dudes around the sacrum rehired. Let's do that another 4 times. Inhale, press the feet down and release. When we have the body weight, the weight of the legs resting right down on this, they get so relaxed that they just take lead. We don't want to start moving the spine again until our sacrum is re-anchored. After the 5th time, now he's going to lift up just high enough where you can slide the block or blocks away. And then let your back come all the way down onto the mat. Pause here. Pause. Your first urge may be to pull the knees in, but that give your back a little bit of time just to relax from the back bend. So we are not lunging right into flexion from the extension, as that can be really irritating. So a few breaths, everything relaxes. And then if your back is saying, please, 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 let's hug the knees in. Hug the knees in. Maybe rock a little bit from side to side, just massage what wants to be moved, massage. Because from here, there's just one stop left. And that's Shavasana. Extending the legs out. And placing the feet wider than your hips. Place the arms with the knuckles gently touching on the floor, so palms facing up. We'll scan the body, and as we did in the beginning, tend to any body part. If there is some chattiness in your low back, slide a blanket under your knees so that the psoas is not pulling on your lumbar spine. If your chin is pulling away from the chest, give your head a little bit of support so that the back of the neck is not jammed. Assess again. Are you comfortable? Are you really comfortable? Don't settle. You are the highest guest, and treat yourself as such in Shavasana. If your body is fidgety, that is a sign that something is uncomfortable. And then we tend to it. Letting the breath deepen. Feel your body filling with breath. And sense your body as it lets go. Feel the aliveness, the pulsations. You may be able to feel your heart beating. You may hear your breath. You may hear your belly telling you that it's almost dinner time. Feel if you're still holding tension anywhere in your body. Maybe unhinge the jaw. Relax the inner ears. As you let the eyes soften deep down into the sockets. Now gently begin to deepen your breath. Wiggling fingers and toes. Bend up the knees. Maybe rock the knees from side to side. Eventually roll all the way over onto your right or left side, whichever is the best side for you tonight. And then as gentle and quietly as you can, transition into seated position. So we started at the toes, the roots, and then Jennifer said, what's the question? What's the pose to release the jaw? And this is indeed a season where we can get a lot of tension around the jaw. Lion's pose is the best of all of them, if you want my opinion. So with the hands on the knees, these are your lion's claws. Watch, and I'll demonstrate it. You take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, you spread your claws, but you also open your mouth wide, stick the tongue out as far as you can, and look between the eyebrows. Looks like this. So let's do that together. Let's take a deep breath in. And again. One more time. And then wipe the spittle off your chin. We'll bring our palms together. So notice the jaw. This is sit a little looser. Let's close with one Om. The sound and energy that cleanses, purifies, heals, and nurtures all that ails. Let's take a deep breath in. Exhale and bow your head towards your heart. You're you. The true you. Living from here without judgment, expectations, or competition is easier, kinder, and gentler. Inhale, let's draw the gaze back up. Namaste.